Hey, what's up? This is Ben from WODprep, and I'm here with WODprep coach Gary Dubbs. He is our mobility and movement specialist, and today is all about hip mobility. We're specifically talking about something that probably isn't talked about enough in the CrossFit community, and that is control. So we need to control ourselves through these mobility demanding movements. So even if you're someone who's really flexible, maybe you have perfect mobility, or maybe you're really strong, I guarantee that some of the drills that we talk about in this video will humble you, as they did me. The videos that we shot for this, I was struggling, and it's actually revealed to me how much I need to work on my control and my stability. Even though my mobility and my strength are decent, this is one thing that's really lacking for me. So just a spoiler alert. By the way, if you're someone who's interested in increasing your overall hip mobility, if you think your hips are holding you back, Gary and I are giving a presentation, basically a 90-minute deep dive coaching call, and you're invited to it for free. All you have to do is go to wodprep.com/hips. You can either watch it live when we do it, or if it happens to be after the fact, you can watch a recording, and we are going to walk you step by step through how we systematically improve people's hip mobility so that they can increase their performance. So let's get into it. Gary, talk to me a little bit about this motor control stuff. Why does it matter, and how are we going to fix it?
So if you caught our previous video, we worked a lot on flexibility. We were like, hey, you need to just be able to get into this range of motion. But what good is it to be able to get into that range of motion if you can't control it? And more specifically, the little nuances that are going on in your body. So you have muscles that stabilize and set the hips up properly, they set the core up properly, so we're not relying on our structure, right? We're not going down, overloading our lower back, or overloading our hips, etc. We want to make sure that everything is doing its job, every muscle is doing its job, and we can control all this new range of motion that we've gained so we can perform the best squat that we possibly can.
Cool. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're developing maybe the little muscles that we don't always hit in these major compound movements that we all like to do in CrossFit. We're going to be isolating those small, annoying muscles that tend to be really weak. Is that what we're doing? All right,
yeah.
Cool.
So things like hip abductors. So just think glutes. Glutes tend to be very underdeveloped, and when things like that happen, then we can overload our hamstrings and lower back. So not only are you putting pressure in areas where you don't want them, you're actually losing potential poundage because you're compensating and not using your big prime movers.
Got it.
So we're going to get into developing those little annoying muscles, as Ben likes to call them. But today, we're going to give you 3 drills right now, and we're going to break them down piece by piece, how to use them, how to incorporate them into your programming so you can go ahead and develop an awesome squat. All right, so let's get into our first drill, which is the side box step off. We love this one because it can wake up the sleepy glutes, and it can also help us develop a really good pistol. But even if you don't want to develop a pistol, you can develop a really good double leg squat.
And it will humble you. This was so difficult to do without falling over.
So for the side box step off, let's start nice and low. You'll actually see here the box that we use is an 8-inch box. You can even go down to just a 45-pound plate. And if you don't feel it in the glute, that means you're probably too high. So give it a whirl, get started. And if you don't feel it in the glute, just a disclaimer right away, let's go lower. But let's break it down. So when he's in this position, you'll see he's basically standing on one leg, which is awesome. So we're gonna do single leg stuff. And when we do this, I want you to essentially go into a single leg squat, and you're going to just lightly touch that opposite heel on the ground like so. You'll see that he just goes down and he controls, taps that bottom leg, comes right back up. When most people are squatting, they tend to just drop. They just drop right into that structure. They get the stretch reflex out of the bottom, but we're actually going to teach you to control with your musculature through these bigger ranges of motion. So he starts off with the box, or the 8-inch box. Say you do it for a couple of weeks, then you can graduate up to a higher elevation. So he has a 12-inch box for this next one, and you'll see
the difference between 8 inches and 12 inches, just lowering myself down, it was tremendous. Like the 8 inches was not bad. It wasn't, I was feeling pretty stable. And then when we moved to the 12-incher, it was just like unbelievable how difficult it was. So it might not be as difficult for you, but it's shown me that I really do need to work on these small stabilizer muscles. So what are we doing? Like, which muscle group, like what are we working in this particular instance?
So where you will really feel it is going to be in your glutes, in particular the lateral glutes. So we're going for that glute medius. But you will actually be teaching your glutes and your adductors to work in congruency. So you have your glutes on the outside of the leg, you have the adductors on the inside of the leg, and they essentially stabilize and work together in this lateral shifting. So we're actually teaching them to stabilize, work in unison while we're going through these deeper ranges of motion.
Like having that one leg, you could feel like my knee wanted to either cave in or go out too wide. It didn't want to track perfectly. And after I got a lot of practice in and my glutes started cramping up, sure enough, it started tracking a little bit better and it was getting a little bit more comfortable. So what's like one point of performance? I know you said when I lower myself down to move controlled and slow and to make sure that I keep my toe up and just tap my heel rather than just splatting to the ground and bouncing back up. Is there anything else we should be thinking about?
Like Ben said, we were getting to is making sure that knee is tracking. So it's not going to be perfect and it's okay. It is not the end of the world if your knee does kind of cave in or out, but we can always try to work on minimizing that. It's not necessarily going to cause injury, but we can always do our best to try to work on that tracking. So when we go into big things like snatches or cleans that are very reactive, that becomes secondary, almost becomes subconscious movement where your body is just more used to stabilizing that knee. And one thing I wanted to mention is once you can control this movement to essentially a 90-degree squat and you can feel the glute activating, remember we need to have that, you need to feel your glute burning, then we can go into these controlled pistols like Ben is doing now. So you'll see that he's basically gotten those glutes to activate all the way to 90 and now he feels comfortable that he can go into a nice controlled pistol. So he goes down and he controls the whole range of motion and he's not slamming down on his structure like most people tend to do when they're in a Metcon and they're racing, they're trying to do pistols, they're slamming down, they're letting go of all muscular control and they're just resting on their tendon stretch reflex, especially the knee. So you're putting a lot more pressure on all these joints. So for this movement, we'll wrap it up here. What we want you to do anytime you're doing this is just do 2 to 3 sets of 10 reps. And I want you to feel that glute burn. We have to feel the glute burn. Remember, go down, lower if you need to. And the way you can incorporate this is super easy. You can do it as a prep. You can throw it in your warm-up before some squats, or you can just do it after your whole workout. If you did a squat intensive workout that day, just throw in some of these single leg box step offs. You won't regret it. You'll develop some better movement and those squats will start to improve.
Yep. And just to throw one more video in there, what he's talking about, you can see here in this video when I'm demonstrating a squat where my knees cave in, that tends to be, it can be a lot of different factors, but hip mobility and then also not having all these smaller muscles developed properly. This drill specifically is going to help you not have those really ugly looking stanky leg squats, as we call them sometimes. So what's the next drill? We've done the single leg box step ups. We've covered that one. It's a great drill. What's another one?
Now we're going to do just some simple single leg deadlifts. So if you do squatting and you do deadlifting as well, we also need to make sure that we are getting that single leg work with that posterior chain. So the side box step offs, we were getting the glutes. We're also getting a lot of quads in there, even though you might not feel the burn in there as much. But now we're going to make sure that we're getting those glutes, hamstrings, and everything stabilizing and controlling these new bigger ranges of motion. And if you'll see, the single leg deadlift is essentially deep hip flexion. We're still getting that hip flexion like we do in a squat. So there is still a very good resemblance to your squat. So for the single leg deadlift, grab a kettlebell. It does not have to be heavy if this is your first time doing it. Also, if you're somebody who is very, very tight, you don't have to go all the way to the ground. Set up a plate to take the kettlebell down to. If you're somebody who feels like your hamstring's about to rip off your leg, I want you to elevate where you go down to and just start working control to there. But for the single leg deadlift, again, we are working on trying to keep that knee tracking over top the toes, nice and aligned with the toes, should I say. But if it caves in a little bit, to the inside or out, that is not the end of the world. So take that kettlebell. So if I have my left foot on the ground, I have the kettlebell in my right hand. So we're doing a contralateral single leg deadlift. And then what you will do is hinge forward at the hips. Try to keep a relatively straight spine and allow that other leg to kick up and back. So for this movement, what we like to do is we don't have to go too crazy, 2 sets of 8, throw it in after a third day, or say you deadlift on one day, you can throw this in at the end of your workout. Say you squatted another day, you can do your single leg box step off. So there's different ways that you can throw these in once a week. They don't have to all be at the same time, and they take about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that one was difficult too, just trying to stay balanced, and you can see how focused I am going through each rep. It takes a special, I guess, level of concentration and control to work on the control that we're trying to develop. So these are all great, and you'll notice they're all single leg. To get stronger with 2 legs, sometimes it's smart to go down to 1.
Yeah, and we'll finish it off with one more single leg movement with the Bulgarian split squat. So it's essentially a lunge with a elevated back heel or back foot. And what this is going to do is it is going to give you some very good feedback on your squat, and specifically that knee tracking. So we're gonna have to get into that deep range of motion of a squat with a single leg. So now we're piecing all the first 2 pieces together. We did the single leg box step off, which got a lot of glutes. Then we did the single leg deadlift, which got a lot more posterior chain. But now we're just saying, hey, let's try to get one leg mimicking a squat as best as we can with this Bulgarian split squat. So points of performance with this, grab some light dumbbells, doesn't have to be too heavy. You'll see that Ben is in a comfortable split squat, so the split doesn't have to be too far back. If you really feel like that back leg is stretching on the split, that's too far. Or if you feel like you can't get your depth or keep your front ankle down, that probably means you're a little bit too close. So if it's kind of pushing that front knee forward and you're kind of losing yourself forward, it might mean you're a little bit too close to that front leg. And then all you have to do, grab those dumbbells, hold them there, go down into this little split squat or a lunge, and let's pay attention to that knee. So we're keeping that heel flat. We have that knee. We're trying to keep it tracking straight over the toes. And what we're doing here is we're not necessarily saying, hey, we're going to eliminate all knee movement in our squat. We are just getting those adductors, those glutes, quads, hamstrings, all those hip stabilizers up at the top, all moving in unison. So we're trying to link it all together, get them all controlling this nice movement, which is essentially just a single leg squat. So if we can control a single leg squat, think about what you can do with a 2-legged squat.
It makes perfect sense. And again, we're isolating the one leg, and now we've kind of like stepped it up a notch. We're adding some weight. I certainly could have even gone heavier in this demonstration. And we're adding weight, and we're still doing it really slow and controlled. And if you get good and you develop the strength and you develop the control with the single leg stuff, the 2-leg stuff that we tend to do in our sport will get a lot easier. And that's it, right? Those are the 3?
Yep. Last one, just two sets of 8 Bulgarian split squats. After a few weeks, go up heavier in the dumbbells, and you'll see that single leg strength and control translate over to a much bigger, stronger, and healthier squat.
So there you have it. Start adding in the side box step offs, start adding in the single leg deadlifts, and start adding in the Bulgarian split squats. All of those single leg movements will help increase your control, and that in turn will help increase your hip mobility and your hip function in all of these more complicated movements that we tend to do in CrossFit. If you're someone who's looking, again, to increase your overall hip performance, Gary and I are giving a presentation. It is a video seminar, and you are invited. Just go to WODprep.com/hips to sign up. You can either come to the live coaching call, or we can send you the recording. Either way, you're going to get a lot of great information on how you can improve your hip function once and for all. Last but not least, in the comments below, let me know what you think, in your own words, what is the #1 thing preventing you from squatting properly? Like, in your own words, what do you think is impinging or causing problems with your hips? I'd love to see what you have to say. Thumbs up if you like the video, thumbs down if you don't like me, and make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next week.